Hey guys, Coach Lawson. Welcome to another episode. Today's title is What I've Seen in My Practice. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to do this again in interview form. So let's get started. All right, first question. Coach Lawson, you've described 2021 as a turning point in your practice. What did you start finding that year, and what was your reaction when the pattern became undeniable? Yeah, so pretty interesting. I was super intrigued myself, but in 2021, I began detecting uranium in my clients' hair. So a lot of you are familiar with the HTMA test. It's a hair minerals analysis test. It also shows heavy metal, the heavy metal profile. But yeah, I started detecting the uranium toxicity in clients in 21, and this was really amazing too, I thought, because it just happened so quickly that in the first 3 or 4 months, I was looking at my client profile, and I was like, oh my gosh, like half of my clients are uranium toxic. And I was like, this is just totally bizarre. So at any rate, it kept going, it kept increasing. And today I'm just about at 70%. So 7 out of every 10 people that come to me are uranium toxic, and it's one of their primary root causes. Sometimes it's their main root cause, but it's always one of their primary players in being sick. So that leads me to, I guess, different geographical regions. It's actually coast to coast, from California here all the way to New York to the East Coast, Florida, and everywhere in between. So uranium just does not discriminate. Also, with diagnoses, my client could have had any type of labeled with any type of diagnosis as far as autoimmune, mast cell activation. They could have actually been identified as being mold toxic as well, but that's all that they were diagnosed with, as having mold toxicity. In essence, sure, they had mold toxicity, but they actually had severe uranium toxicity to go along with mold. So that's the thing. It just doesn't discriminate location-wise or whatever your diagnosis is. And that was just really, like I said, really interesting. But guess what? That's what it is. So many people are uranium toxic. And, once again, the good old conventional medical system has failed to identify this as a primary root cause, accumulated toxicity. So that kind of goes with the territory as well, as far as which avenue you decide to take. If it's going to be more of a functional, natural, foundational type of healing that you want to proceed with versus conventional, drawing a lot of blood, taking medications, just doing a lot of stuff that doesn't have really anything to do with root causes of why you're sick and why you might have a numerous amount of different diagnoses and labels. So hey, I'm Coach Lawson, a holistic foundational immunity practitioner since 2013. I've got well over a decade of working with the chronically ill, the misdiagnosed and dismissed and undertreated and so forth. Since 2021, I am the first and original practitioner to identify and effectively address uranium toxicity in people. As the world's leading expert on uranium toxicity, I've got years of experience now with clinical pattern data. What I'm sharing with you in this video cannot be found anywhere else because I'm the only one that's doing this work. This is my clinical record, and I'm sharing it because the people who need it need to know. Okay, let's go to question number 2. When you look back at the clients you've identified uranium in since 2021, is there a common diagnostic profile? What diagnoses were they typically carrying when they came to you? Okay, so this is a good question. I kind of touched on it previously, but to extend on that, my clients could have been coming to me with any type of autoimmune. It could have been a fibromyalgia diagnosis, could have been a lupus diagnosis, Hashimoto's, or an RA, MCAS, of course. They could have had a certain other identified toxicity, such as mold toxicity, but they were all in this category of chronic illness. Some of them were just diagnosed with anxiety and panic disorder, and nothing else. So, additionally, most of my clients were on or had previously tried immunosuppressants, antidepressants, painkillers, antihistamines, the conventional approach with little to no effect. And finally, many of them had tried a lot of functional protocols such as gut healing, adrenal support, hormone balancing, with very little improvement in that as well. And the common thread here was none of them were tested for uranium toxicity. Okay, let's move on to number 3. You've talked about tracking geographic patterns in your clients, correlating where they lived and their water source with their uranium burden. What did that data show you? So, I don't want to emphasize this too much, but private well water has actually been the most uranium toxic water, but in all the municipal water systems, high levels of uranium are getting into people's bodies. So the main point is here, it's coming from your water. Well water could be a little more saturated with uranium, but either way, you could definitely have significant amounts of uranium. So additionally with that, hypothetically, let's say you were consuming a lot of uranium, and then you moved to a different home or region, and you were at that point you were consuming less uranium. It's not really going to show up in your hair, because this uranium, once it accumulates, it doesn't really go anywhere. So you might say, oh, I've tested my water recently or when we moved and I'm good now. But even if that was the case, you could still most likely be very uranium toxic just because of the previous exposure from your other location that you were at. Okay, let's go to question number 4. One of the most striking things about what you've documented is how consistent the symptom profile was across clients who had never met, lived in different states, and correlated different diagnoses. Can you describe that profile? Yeah, there's a whole slew of conditions and or symptoms that go along with being uranium toxic. So the first one is brain fog and cognitive decline. Another one would be very prominent chronic fatigue, kidney, suboptimal kidney function. Uranium does have an affinity and essentially attacks the kidneys. Gut dysfunction, gut dysbiosis. Uranium is very powerfully suppressing the immune system. So it's going to create gut dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, and Infections will come in at that point. Mood disturbances, of course. So typically when you have cognitive issues and brain fog, your mood is going to be very unstable. And multiple chemical sensitivities as well. Those off your DAO enzyme production in the gut. When your gut becomes significantly in a state of dysbiosis, it does not produce nutrients and enzymes, and DAO, diamine oxidase, is one of the primary players, enzymes for histamine. So that's another one. And finally, overall, just immune dysregulation. So very significant suppressed immune system. And I see that on just about every single stool sample, stool test that I do with my clients. Their secretory IgA is either skyrocket off the chart, or it's hardly even functioning. So it's basically disrupting very prominently the immune system. So these, and there's more to it, more than this. These are the main conditions and symptoms, but this is a biological consequence of uranium burden. Okay, question number 5. For the clients who went through your full root cause protocol and program after uranium was identified, what did their recovery look like? What changed, and in what order? So yeah, all the conditions and symptoms that I just mentioned. The order is a little specific to the person. They may have started to feel that their fatigue level was lessening a little bit, or they may have felt more brain cognitive clarity, that coming back. So not a specific order, but over time, as the uranium is being among the other primary players, I mean, there's always numerous deficiencies, and sometimes there's other toxic as well. I mean, usually. So this takes it's a time, it's a process to take this along, but healing. One thing I want to say with healing is, and some people don't know this, especially if they haven't been through it, but healing is not linear. It's not instant. So it's a process. It takes a little bit of time. There's maybe days where you feel like you're going backwards, and that's totally normal. You're going to have detox symptoms, right? Which sometimes aren't that pleasant. You're going to have Herxheimer symptoms, eradication of different bacteria or infections, or could be viral Herxheimer. So when we have these conditions, or this is actually healing. When this is happening, sometimes you feel a little bit worse, because when we're releasing all this, it kind of gets into the bloodstream a little bit, and that's just more inflammation, so it can cause some symptoms. So sometimes you feel like you're going backwards, when in essence you're actually healing, because you're killing off this infection and you're removing all this toxic crud that you've accumulated. So this is what is possible when the real source is finally found and addressed. Okay, question number 6. As the first and original practitioner to document uranium toxicity in chronically ill people, why is sharing this clinical record so important to you? And what do you want people watching this video to understand? Okay, that's a good question. So, the thing is, when you're chronically ill, it sucks. And most of the time, you're going to be sick for years. There's so many people that actually never figure out why they're sick, and they never get well, which is very unfortunate. But this is just another reason why this is so important to me, to get this message out there and to expose this, because it's such a prevalent root cause to poor health. And at this point, nobody really knows about uranium toxicity still, 5 years after I started identifying uranium toxicity in people. But people deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know why they're sick, and at least give them a chance to heal and feel great and have an amazing quality of life and a long life. People just, they deserve that. And they're not getting proper, and this goes beyond uranium, but they're just not getting proper diagnoses of their root causes. They're getting diagnoses of labels that have been created for their symptoms and symptomology. So symptomology is not why you're sick, it's just what you're experiencing. So you don't really need anyone to tell you what you're experiencing, right? It can be pretty brutal sometimes. So that's the main thing, getting the message out there to people who are chronically ill and are struggling and don't know why they're ill, and they're starting to understand that my body is breaking down because I'm toxic. I've accumulated toxicities over the years. I've become deficient. My immune system's not working. I have all this, inflammation, infection set in, which is creating a lot of this inflammation, and they're having all these different, symptoms happen, and it's being called a, MCAS or an autoimmune or whatever it is that they're being labeled as. So that's why I'm here to do this, to help people get well in general, but also to spread the word about how prevalent uranium toxicity is. So please share this video. It's the most clinical and the most personal video that I've made so far. And if you know anyone who is chronically ill and still searching for answers, please send them this video. This video may be their turning point. And if you're ready to work with the first and original practitioner who has identified and effectively addressed uranium, don't hesitate to reach out through immunitycoach.org, and I will see you in the next video.